I feel like harissa is having a moment lately, and for a good reason, because it is delicious. To be honest, I didn't know much about harissa until I started going to Kava. You know, that Mediterranean restaurant chain that's been popping all over the cities? But I gotta say, once I had their harissa chicken, I was hooked. Since then, I learned how to make harissa at home, and that's what we're doing today. I'm going to show you how to make harissa two ways. First, we'll do it completely from scratch, and then second, we'll take a shortcut and make it using harissa powder. In the end, I'll also show you some creative ways to use this spicy condiment in your daily cooking. So what exactly is harissa? Well, harissa is a smooth, spicy chili sauce that originated in Tunisia. It is sometimes referred to as Tunisian ketchup, harissa paste, or North African hot sauce. Basically, it is a spicy red chili sauce that is commonly used to add deep flavor and a punch of heat to meat and vegetable dishes. Now, I know I keep saying spicy, but if you're not a fan of spicy food, no worries, because I will show you how to adjust the heat levels while you're making it. Also, it goes without saying, while Tunisia is credited with the birth of harissa, it is popular across the region. Nowadays, you can find versions of harissa flavored with rose water, preserved lemons, sweet roasted bell peppers, and even tomato paste, inspired mainly by Moroccan variations of this condiment. As a matter of fact, the version we're making here is more Moroccan than the authentic Tunisian harissa. Now that we know what harissa is, let's make it from scratch. The main ingredient in this recipe is dried chilies. Here, you have a few options. You can go in the direction of Mexican dried chilies, which tend to be spicier, compared to your other option, New Mexican chilies. In general, you can use any dried chilies you like. If you like spicy food, go for the hotter peppers, and vice versa. During our recipe testing, we found that mixing a few varieties of chilies gave us the most complex flavors, so we ended up using a mix of guajillo, ancho, and de arbol chilies, all of which you can find in your local grocery store, perhaps in the Mexican food section. But you can also find them online, and I will include a link for it in the description. In total, for a cup of harissa, we're going to use 7 to 8 dried chilies, but feel free to adjust the amount depending on the type of chilies you're using. We'll start by placing the chilies in a bowl and adding boiling water until it covers the peppers. I also like to put a small plate over the peppers to keep them submerged in water so that they will soften quickly. We'll let them steep for about 30 minutes and then drain. Next, we remove the stems and de-seed the peppers. This is also where you can adjust the spiciness of your harissa. You can remove all of the seeds or keep some for added heat depending on your preference. Then we'll transfer that into a food processor and add in 1 1/4 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1 1/4 teaspoons of ground coriander, 1 teaspoon of caraway seeds, 2 whole roasted red peppers. I'm using jarred peppers here, but of course you can roast them your own. 3 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of paprika, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 1/3 of a cup of olive oil. While they're optional, I like to also add a tablespoon of tomato paste and a pinch of cayenne pepper. We'll process that until smooth, about a minute or so. And during the process, I like to stop the machine and scrape the sides a few times to ensure everything is mixed evenly. I also like to give it a taste and add more seasoning if necessary. Then we'll transfer it to a jar and store it in the fridge. And just like that, we have made our very own harissa from scratch. Now, before we move on to the next version, one thing I want to mention is that while I use ground cumin, coriander, and caraway seeds, you can buy them as a whole and grind them yourself. We went for ground spices for the sake of time. If you decide to go in that direction, I highly recommend toasting them for a few minutes before grinding. To do so, place a small dry skillet over medium heat. Add the whole spices and toast, constantly stirring for about 2 to 3 minutes. You'll know they are ready when they become fragrant and slightly darker in color. Then you can let them cool a bit, transfer them to your spice grinder, and grind them until they turn into powder. While it's an additional step, toasting spices brings out their natural oils, intensifying the flavors and giving the harissa an even deeper and more complex taste. So if you do have the time, I think it's worth it. Moving on, the second version comes together in 10 minutes because we're using harissa powder as a shortcut. Now, if you have the time to make your own harissa powder, I have a detailed recipe on my website that shows how to make it from scratch. We included everything you need to know, and I promise it's not that difficult. If you have the time again, feel free to check it out. But right now, for the sake of time and convenience, we'll use a store-bought harissa powder. When shopping for harissa powder, you'll see there are so many brands out there. We tested this recipe using Whole Foods' organic harissa seasoning and New York Shook harissa spice blend. They were both very good, but in terms of taste, we thought that Whole Foods' version was milder and more flavorful, so we'll use that for this video. To make it, in the bowl of a food processor, place 2 pieces of roasted red peppers, 1/3 of a cup of harissa powder, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 3 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 1/3 of a cup of extra virgin olive oil. We'll process that until everything is mixed, stopping once to scrape the sides of the bowl and also give it a taste. And just like that, in less than 10 minutes, you have made your own harissa using basic pantry staples. Now let's talk storage. Harissa can be stored in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. I like to place it in a jar, smooth the top with the back of a spoon, and drizzle a thin layer of olive oil before I cover it with the lid. The layer of oil acts as a barrier to oxygen, which can cause the harissa to spoil over time. Alternatively, you can freeze it in an ice cube tray in individual portions for up to a month or 2. This way, you can easily use small portions in your daily cooking. Speaking of using it, let's talk about how to put your homemade harissa to good use. Harissa is incredibly versatile and can be used in so many ways. To be honest, I can go on and on about this, but here are a few of my favorites. Marinade for meat and seafood. Harissa makes a great marinade, especially for chicken and salmon. In fact, we recently shared a recipe for grilled harissa chicken where I marinated a few chicken thighs with some harissa and grilled them for a quick meal. Since it's already so flavorful, you don't have to marinate it for too long, which makes it ideal for a weeknight dinner. Base for stews and soups. I think of harissa being similar to tomato paste with a stronger peppery flavor. Using a few tablespoons of harissa as a base in your soups and stews is a good way to add more fragrant and bold notes into your recipes. A sandwich spread. You can use it as a spread for any sandwich, but I especially like to use it to make avocado toast. Simply spread a piece of toast with a generous amount of harissa and then top it off with some sliced avocados, and if you have the time, make a fried egg and enjoy. As a condiment, add a few tablespoons of harissa to your next hummus, Greek yogurt, or even mayo to turn it into a dip. As I mentioned earlier, I can go on and on, but one other thing you can do is to make harissa salad dressing. You'll know this well if you're a fan of kava like I am. We'll be sharing a video of how to make a kava bowl at home using that harissa dressing next, but if you prefer not to wait, we have a recipe on the blog. Feel free to check that out. Now, I know that most stores sell jarred harissa, and as we were working on this recipe, we bought and tested a few of them. But in the end, we found out that making it at home was not only cheaper, but also superior in taste, mainly because you can control the heat and adjust the spices to your taste. I hope you give it a try. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Because the layer of... Really? The layer of oil... I can't. Varieties of chilies. Oh, I'm cracking up here by myself. Yes. All right, moving on.